I hope you all are doing well, and I hope you're able to get started on our dynamic mismatched duo movie poster project. There was a few questions after the first video that I wanted to address before I got started today. One of them was that they couldn't get past just having a background layer. So my suggestion was to make the background layer first by going to File New, and then if you just drag an existing image onto the document. So I had it saved on my desktop. I drag it onto my document. That's when you get a new layer. Um, if you just start with the document and you don't have a document made and you're dragging things in, it's always just going to make it like the background layer. So if you start a document, set up your size, and then drag these in, that should work. One thing I failed to mention yesterday, which when I was working on this later, trying to clean it up a little bit, a good tool for getting rid of background if it's all similar color was the background eraser tool, which is something we used in class a long time ago. You can find that right here in your toolbox. It's in the same place as the eraser tool called background eraser. And if you have your brush set large enough, so I'm using the bracket keys on the keyboard, you can click out here and, oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't rasterize the layer. So let's do that really quick. Um, Layer, and we're going to just rasterize that really quick. Sorry about that. And when I start clicking out here, you can see that it is starting to get rid of the area around his head. Now, it's a little bit tricky because it doesn't give you, like when I zoom in really close on this, usually in Photoshop you get like a little crosshair in the middle of the circle. Here you kind of just have to like guess as to where it's picking. So if I want to get these darker areas, I'm going to have to get in closer to him. And the danger is if I click right on top of him, I'm going to start getting rid of a lot of orange that's on him instead of blue in the background. But that was another tool for cleaning up your objects as well. It just requires a little bit better aim in Photopea than it does any other program. So, you know, just a suggestion for you guys. So I'm going to get rid of that layer. And what I wanted to show you guys today was, once you get your images together, I could get rid of the background of the Batman layer at some point and put my own background in there. Because if I want to do, like Batman and Ernie bath time or something like that, something Ernie likes to do, I could add a different background in there, maybe make it like Ernie's room or something. But I want to talk about actually putting text in and making it look like movie poster stuff. I also want to talk about doing masks. So I have here a picture of Ernie, and I would like for you guys to think about possibly doing this somewhere in your picture. The Batman's hand, the Batman, his hand is right now behind Ernie's shoulder. So what I would like to do is take this area right in here, and I would like to make his hand look like it's coming out in front. And one of the ways I could do that is using a mask on Ernie. So we talked about masks a lot in class, and remember at the bottom of the window you have all these buttons down here. You have the Create Layer Mask button. Create Layer Mask, remember, works with black and white, and it works with a brush. So I'm going to go get a brush, and I'm going to change my colors to black as my foreground and white as my background. This way now, when I paint out here, I can paint over Batman's hand, and I can start to make that look like, I'm going to make this brush a little bit bigger, I can start to make that look like his hand is coming out in front. Now, the thing with this is that it's not just an eraser tool, it is a mask tool, so that if I make a mistake, and let's say I take too much of Batman's hand, that I can go back and I could swap out my colors. So I'll now make that white on top, and then I could paint back in places on Ernie that I did not want to delete originally. Okay, so that would be a cool thing to do maybe in some spot on your movie poster. to have some kind of like overlapping area between the two pictures to try to give it a little more realism. Now, I may go back later on and put a shadow in underneath his hand here to make it look like, in fact, his finger might be behind his front arm here or something. I don't know. This way it makes my life a little bit easier. And it doesn't look too good up close, but from a distance it starts to look better. Maybe this thumb wouldn't be here because it would probably be behind Ernie's neck or something. So, I could play around with that. The other place I could possibly do this later on is with the text. You could have Batman's hand here come out in front of the text. So I do want you to use a mask at some point in your project, all right, if the opportunity allows for it. So to make a new text layer, you just take your text tool from the toolbox. So I have it selected. Go to the area you want to type in, and you don't have to be exact with this, but you're just going to click on your screen, and you'll see it's sometimes a little hard to see depending on what your background image is. You'll get a little text box up there, and I'm just going to start typing in the words I want. Now, it's a little hard to see. In fact, it's very hard to see. So I'm going to increase the size. And let me go back to my character window here and make sure that this is set. Okay, now I can start seeing my text. This is the character window that I clicked on, and I guess yesterday when I was messing around, I was playing around with the line spacing, which I'll show you in a minute. I didn't have auto selected. So that was a little weird glitch that wouldn't have happened in Photoshop right there. So that would be extremely frustrating. In fact, I had to stop the video for a second to try to figure out what was going on, and the setting went back to not being checked for auto. Leading is the spacing between lines. So when I type in more than one line, so I'm going to type in, finish my type here, Batman and Ernie, and I'm going to hit my check mark for now, and I'm going to get my move tool, and I'm going to scale it up. Here we go. I want to make it pretty big. You're going to play around with some things like, all your text should not be all the same size. Like the word "and" should be much smaller. It's not that important of the word in the title. So I'm going to make this, I'm just going to guess it, 110 there and see if that works. As you can see, it didn't want to change for some reason. So I'll try clicking and dragging on the word. Did you see me do that? I clicked right on the word size and I was able to change it. So this is where I run into a little problem with line spacing because "and" is down here. So I would like to select all of it for a second, and this is where the leading comes into play. Leading controls the spacing between the words, so that's obviously way too close together. And when you're on 0, you don't even see the word. So I'm going to space this out a little bit, but I'm going to run into a little bit of a problem because as I space this out, and this is where that delay of it being a web-based program is kind of a pain in the butt. You can see that the Batman and work out well together, but the word Ernie needs to move down quite a bit. So I'm going to use baseline shift on this one, and we're going to move Ernie down that way. All right, so maybe I have to move the "and" up. It took me a little while when I was playing around with this yesterday to get it to look right. So it's going to take you guys a little bit of time to do that as well. The Photoshop tools are way easier to use, and that lag is really a killer. But anyway, you can see that you can eventually get this to look the way you want it to look after messing around with it for a little bit of time. Okay, I don't know if I can make the baseline shift further than that. No, it just wants me to go 10. But anyway, after a while, I was able to get it right. The other thing you could possibly do is make each line of your text a separate layer. Okay, so once you get your text all set up, what I had earlier, and I'm going to go back to the piece I was playing around with yesterday, is it was right there. Oh no, I did get rid of it. Did I? Let's see. Up there it is. So when I played around with this yesterday, there's a couple things that I did. Number one, I was able to put text effects on it. So same thing as in Photoshop. If you double click on the layer, you can get to your text effects layer style window, right? So I'm able to put a stroke on there, drop shadow. You could do different like color overlays and stuff like that. You could put gradients on top of your text. All these things will do different things to your text to make it look more professional, like inner shadows, bevel. It's all here. So I really want you to play around with that. Make sure you put some layer style onto your text. Once you have that set up, you could also warp it. And I was able to warp it by going to the text tool, having that layer selected, and you click on the word warp at the top of the screen. And then you're familiar with this window as well. You can see where it says style, and I can play around with that, and I can play around with the bend and all that kind of stuff that's in here too, because you want to give it a little bit of a dynamic look. And then once you're done with all that, you can scale it and place it. So that's about as far as I want you to go. I probably talked longer than 10 minutes, and I promise not to. So, you guys can play around with this, get some text in there, play around with a layer mask, and start putting your projects together. Some of you guys are going to take a long time to do this. For others, you're going to find it a little bit easier to deal with. If you have questions, let me know. I will try to get back to you as soon as I possibly can. It's a little hard to answer your questions through comments on Schoology, but I'll do the best I can. All right, good luck, guys. Miss you.